Well, Nigeria is to begin disbursement of the repatriated $322 million stolen funds to its poorest citizens in July.
Yes, and we really are already in July. Now, this was disclosed at an asset recovery forum with the Swiss government in Abuja. Lara Folayon reports.
$322 million was recently repatriated to Nigeria by the Swiss government. The monies were recovered from accounts of former military leader Spend Abacha. They were released on conditions they will be given to the country's poorest citizens.
The process of utilizing that funds that are with the central bank has been completed. All signatories, all the Naira drawdown account has been opened, fully ready to use. By first week of July, we request for the conversion of the funds into the account, which by end of the July, we are going to use that money through our payment service providers recruited for this same exercise, who are responsible for making the payments in all our 19 states communities that are participating in this program. I am assuring this committee that by July ending, the Swiss funds will be put into use.
The money is to be deployed using existing social safety net projects, but there are concerns.
The issues that is coming out from the National Cash Transfer Office about the issue of procuring those people who will be responsible for the payment system, you will agree with me that nobody is aware of that in this country. Those are issues of transparency. How do you procure the service of these people? Who are the people behind this company? Now, you have also heard from the Cash Transfer Office that the money has now, they've opened a Naira drawdown account. No information to the public. The central bank, in moving the money from the dollar account to Naira account, what are the information disclosure? What was the exchange rate used? Those are fundamental issues Nigerians want to know. The beneficiary register, we want to also have an access to it, so that in a format that we'll be able to ask and verify that the money that leave the upstream actually get to the downstream.
So many questions there begging for answers. Well, we have David Ugolo. He's the Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, and he's joining us via Skype from Edo State. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. How is Edo this morning?
Edo is fine. Cool.
Ah, fantastic. It's great to know. Okay, so federal government plans to disburse this $322 million to 300,000 households in Nigeria, the poorest of the poor, and of course to 19 states. Do you have any concerns at all, or do you think this is economic justice?
First, let me thank you for the opportunity to again appear in this your prestigious program. I think this is a huge, big surprise for Nigerians, because first, this has never happened in the world. Now, we must commend the federal government for this decision to, again, make sure that the victims of corruptions in Nigeria are beneficiary of this money that is transferred from Switzerland. But the question is that we commend the Swiss government, we commend the Nigerian government for making it possible for us to recover the Abacha Loot, which we have been campaigning for the last 15 years. And now the money has finally returned to Nigeria, now currently sitting in the central bank in Nigeria. Nigerians are very willing to see what will happen with the money. And in that circumstance, we decided to organize the meeting last week, which again led to the disclosure we have seen so far. But having said so, we are also very encouraged by the Office of the Vice President in making effort to ensure that information about how the money is going to be disbursed is made available to the public. But like I also mentioned in my intervention at the Global Forum on Asset Recovery meeting at the Swiss Embassy last week, there are issues, and those issues need to be responded to. One of those key issues is the issue of access to information, access to how those who are procured to deploy the resources to the beneficiary were procured. What is the procurement process that was followed? What happened to the people who are going to benefit this money? How the beneficiary register was assembled? All these informations need to be made available to the public, so that what happened in 2004 and 2005 do not happen again. the issue of transparency and accountability around asset recovery is huge around the world, particularly against the background where the Nigerian government and other governments have signed on to the issue of transparency and accountability around asset recovery.
Right, David. So, in other words, you are saying that it would not be right to disburse this money, it would not be right to spend it if some of these questions that have been raised have not been answered.
No, we want the money to be disbursed under a framework of transparency and accountability, and which, as you may know, that when the Swiss court ruled that the World Bank should be part of the monitoring in Nigeria, and in the MOU signed between Nigeria and the Swiss government in Washington last year, it was very clear that the issue of transparency and accountability and the involvement of civil society is fundamental for this money to be properly used. And in following up on this, we, civil society in Nigeria, that have been campaigning for asset recovery in the country, we are prepared to monitor this money. And that's why we enter into an MOU with the Ministry of Justice, asking for a formal relationship that will ensure that independent monitoring of these resources is very important. And at the last meeting, the National Cash Transfer Office have already assured us that by the end of this month, on the 23rd of this month, they're going to call for a meeting where they're going to provide all the information and how they will be disbursing, and that the disbursement will commence this month ending. And
all right.
There are certain information we need so that we can monitor this process very well.
All right, would like to explore those information, of course, that you would require for government to itemize, if it will be any comfort. But how comforting is it? Let me use that word. You know, since we know that the World Bank will be monitoring the disbursement of these funds, and of course the Swiss government, in agreeing to release these funds, also actually insisted that this monies should be spent on education, for example, health, and providing essential amenities for the poor population. I mean, some economic experts or financial experts have said this really is not a sound economic sense if you disburse 5,000 naira to each family, cutting across 300,000 families, of course. That if you injected these funds into areas that are actually sustainable in terms of, the kind of impact, the long-term sustainable impact that it would have, it would make more sense than disbursing 5,000 to each family.
First, let me thank you for this good question, because these are some of the issues that some of our colleagues are raising, and which I share their concern very strongly. But however, on this issue of the repatriation of the $322.5 million from Switzerland, is done deal. MOU have been signed, money has been returned back to Nigeria, and agreement must be followed. So the issue of decision whether the money should be spent for cash transfer, 5,000 to individuals in Nigeria, is not under contention. Agreement has been signed. And so, therefore, what we as civil society are saying is that, yes, let's agree that this money needs to go to the poor. And the government has said that they have a poverty map they have carried out. They have a beneficiary register. What we are asking for is transparency and disclosure. We want to know who are those poor people that are in the beneficiary register. The question whether the money would have been spent on education or health is not under contention on this MOU. Because when the court in Geneva ruled, it was very clear when they demand that World Bank should be part of the monitoring. And then the Nigerian government negotiated with the Swiss government and agreed that the money should go for cash transfer. At that point in time, it's difficult for this point in time now to reverse that agreement. So what we should be concerned about is that whether this money will actually get to the poor people of Nigeria. I think that's the real issue.
Yeah. All right, David.
Yes.
All right, David. Well, the House of Representatives said they were going to set up a committee to interrogate why the Justice Minister hired or contracted lawyers that he seemed to have relationships with in the past in the process of trying to repatriate this money. Does that really matter since the money is already on our hands?
Well, in the first place, it's not a crime if you procure a lawyer, but the question is that is the process. Even if your brother is a qualified lawyer and is competent to do the job and he can deliver, and if he compete under a competitive, transparent process and he qualified, you can hire a service. It's not a crime to do that. You know, we have to be very careful how we try to discredit this process. So one thing that is very clear is that it's for us to ask, what was the process that was followed? Was this lawyer procured, the service that they procured, was it qualified? Is it competent? Was he able to deliver on what the federal government expected? Those are the issues. But on this particular $322.5 million of Abacha Loot, we have gone beyond that. What we are asking as civil society is that we want to see that this money go to the poor as claimed by the federal government. We want to know those Nigerians. It doesn't matter whether they are from the north or south. We're very careful that we don't go political, because the politician can exploit this to create disaffection in the country. If the money go to solve the poor people's problem in Nigeria, we would have achieved our goal as campaigner for asset recovery internationally. The first key thing that we must ask ourselves is that crime must not pay. One of the key messages that this return of Abacha money is sending to the world is that crime must not pay. And those that are currently in power, they must also know that one day the law will catch up with them, and the asset that they have acquired will be seized and be returned to the poor people of Nigeria. Whether the money is going to the north or the south, it doesn't really matter. We have to be very careful and be cautious not to play into the hands of politicians, because they can create disaffection, and then the major goal of ensuring that resources is returned back to the country will be defeated. The key issue around asset recovery is that we identify assets traced to politicians, traced to political exposed person, corrupt people in the country, and even corrupt companies in the country, and then identify it, seize it, return it back to the people. That's the most important thing. And when it is returned to the country, under what framework will it be disbursed? And when it is under discussion, what are the issues that we need to use the money to do? That's the key issues.
Very key there. But how much economic justice is there when we're told that 19 states will be beneficiaries of this disbursements? In 2016, since 2016 December that the conditional cash transfer started, a lot of people are saying government really has not given enough account of itself to show that, yes, that has been a success, and so this tranche of disbursements will also be a success.
Well, from your question, yes. I'm sure that you don't have an empirical evidence to qualify whether the cash transfer has been a success or a failure.
Do you have that? Do you have it?
I am not telling you that whether it's a success yet. I'm just saying that, and I don't speak for the National Cash Transfer Office. I am the executive director of ANED, an NGO that is involved in monitoring whether the money will be used properly. But we have to be careful not to discredit people when we don't have empirical evidence. And we should not lay our emphasis on mere speculation, because we have to be careful not to discredit the process. Cash transfer has been used in other parts of the world to address the issue of poverty. In our own case, it might not be different. But what we are saying is that...
Can you confidently say, yes, indeed, it has worked elsewhere, but a process that has been on since 2016 December, this is 2 years after. And yes, at the same time, Nigeria has taken over from a country like India as a country with the most poor. 87 million out of 198 million Nigerians are below the poverty line. You would think that that conditional cash transfer would have made some difference. This is not an issue of trying to discredit or not.
Let me also put it in perspective that sometimes when we provide our analysis, we put it in context. The information you're referring to, it has to be put in context. And the data that is available in Nigeria, to put that in context, you need to also interrogate those data. For me, I don't speak for the National Cash Transfer Office. I don't speak for the federal government. But what we are saying as civil society is that we want to be sure that the way we engage in this process provides an enabling environment for us to access information that will enable us to come to a conclusion, like what we did in 2004, 2005. For your information, in 2004, 2005, the Nigerian government under Obasanjo claimed that they have used recovered assets from Abacha's money for educational health rule. And when we investigated from independent report, which now led to the famous Abacha Shadow report, we found that most of the money were missing Not road they claimed that they built was not built. Hospital they claimed they built was not built. And things like that, this information we put into the public, and that informed the global outreach that called for the need for a transparent and accountable framework, and with the involvement of civil society in monitoring asset recovery. This recovered asset under the MOU between Swiss and Nigerian government take that into consideration when they design this framework. And that's why we are saying that now that the framework is in place, let's see how it goes. The money from Abacha Loot has not yet been disbursed. By the end of this month, it's going to be disbursed. And the 19 states that you have claimed, that they claim that they have disbursed so far in cash transfer, it's 36 states that the money is going. But state government must indicate interest to participate in the process. There are infrastructure that state government must put in place. And it's only when they put those infrastructure in place that they can be involved in the cash transfer process. We as civil society, we are also doing lobbying and advocacy towards the remaining states to ensure that they sign on to this innovative process of recovery, utilizing assets recovered for the benefit of the people. So one of the things that I think the media should also help in addressing this issue is that we must also begin to ask those state governments that are yet to sign on to this process to ask why have they not signed on? What are the challenges? If there are any challenge, we must begin to also identify those challenges and unpack them so that we see that the whole entire country, including the FCT, are involved in this benefit.
All right, David Ugolo, I think that's a very nice point to leave with. Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. Well, thank you very much indeed, sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.